Michael had always believed in the sanctity of marriage. He and Olivia had built a life together over 12 years, filled with love, laughter, and challenges they had faced as a team. Or at least that's what he thought. But sometimes the most painful truths are the ones hidden in plain sight. It began subtly, like a whisper in the wind, too faint to notice at first, yet impossible to ignore once heard. Olivia, once full of warmth and affection, grew distant. Her eyes, which once held only love for him, now seemed to look through him, as though she were somewhere else entirely. She was suddenly preoccupied with her phone, giggling at texts she refused to show him, staying late at work more frequently than ever before. Michael told himself it was just stress, just a phase, something they would work through like they always had. But doubt is a seed that, once planted, grows wild. One evening, Olivia left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she stepped into the shower. Michael wasn't the kind of man to pry, but something gnawed at him. He glanced at the screen. A chat window blinked at him, the name Daniel hovering at the top. The words on the screen sliced through him like a knife. "I miss you already. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again." His breath caught in his throat. His hands shook as he scrolled up. The messages stretched back weeks, maybe months. Each one was a betrayal, an admission of Olivia's secret life. The woman he had given his heart to had been slipping away piece by piece, and he hadn't even noticed. Michael felt something inside him break. He wanted to scream, to confront her the moment she stepped out of the shower, but he didn't. No, he needed more than anger. He needed the truth, every last detail. For the next 2 weeks, he played the role of the unsuspecting husband. He smiled, laughed, kissed her goodnight, all while unraveling the web of lies she had spun around him. He followed her once, watching from a distance as she met Daniel at a dimly lit cafe, their hands brushing, their smiles full of a secret language he was no longer a part of. He hired a private investigator to gather undeniable proof. Every text, every meeting, every stolen glance, he documented it all. And then he set his plan in motion. The anniversary of their marriage was approaching. Olivia seemed indifferent, offering only a distracted, "We should do something nice," before returning to her phone. Michael, however, had something much more elaborate in mind. On the night of their anniversary, he arranged a dinner at the same elegant restaurant where they had celebrated their first year of marriage. He told Olivia to dress up, to expect a night to remember. She smiled, perhaps believing that her deception had gone unnoticed, that he was still the loving, oblivious husband she had grown so comfortable betraying. The table was set, the candlelight flickering between them as they clinked their glasses together. Michael let her talk, let her pretend everything was normal. He watched as she laughed, sipping from her wine glass, oblivious to what was coming. Then when the moment was just right, he pulled out an envelope and placed it in front of her. "Open it," he said, his voice calm, steady. Confused, Olivia hesitated before slipping the papers out. Her face drained of color as she scanned the contents. Photos of her and Daniel, transcripts of messages she thought had been erased, undeniable proof of her infidelity. She looked up at him, horror in her eyes. "Michael, I can explain—" "No," he interrupted, his voice devoid of the warmth that had once been there. "You've already said enough. This is a divorce agreement. You'll find everything in order. I've spoken to a lawyer and I'll be keeping the house. You can go to him now, since that's where you've been going anyway." Tears welled in her eyes, but Michael didn't care anymore. He had spent too long believing in a love that no longer existed. She reached across the table for his hand, but he pulled away, his expression unmoved. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, voice trembling. He let out a small, bitter laugh. "That's the thing about betrayal, Olivia. The person doing it never thinks about the pain until they're caught." She lowered her gaze, her hands clutching the evidence of her own destruction. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Michael stood, adjusting his jacket. The air around him felt lighter, as if he had shed the weight of years in a single moment. He glanced at Olivia one last time, memorizing the face of the woman he once loved but no longer recognized. As he walked away, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Freedom. The pain was still there, a dull ache in the background, But it no longer defined him. He was ready to rebuild, to start anew. And for the first time in months, he smiled. Because the worst part of betrayal isn't losing the person you love, it's realizing they were never who you thought they were in the first place. The following weeks were a blur of paperwork, legal meetings, and the slow dismantling of a life that had once seemed unshakable. Olivia tried reaching out, sending long-winded texts, voicemails filled with apologies, but Michael ignored them all. The moment he signed those divorce papers, he felt the last chain of their broken marriage snap. Yet the pain lingered. Nights felt endless, his bed colder than he had ever imagined. He found himself staring at old pictures, memories of vacations, Christmas mornings, the way she used to look at him before everything changed. It was easy to hate her, but harder to erase the years they had spent together. One evening, Michael decided to reclaim his own story. He booked a solo trip to Greece, a place they had once planned to visit but never had. He watched the sun set over the Aegean Sea, the warm breeze carrying away the ghosts of his past. He met new people, laughed in ways he hadn't in years, and slowly, piece by piece, rebuilt the man he had lost. By the time he returned home, Olivia was nothing more than a memory. The betrayal still left a scar, but it no longer controlled him. He had learned that pain was not the end. Sometimes it was just the beginning of something greater.